Good evening. The regular City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority meeting for the City of Riverbank is now in session. Today is Tuesday, August 25th, 2015, 6 p.m. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Jesus, we come to you tonight. We come to you, Heavenly Father, with heavy hearts, but we know that you are in control. And we know, Heavenly Father, Jesus, that as we come to you, we seek wisdom from you. And Heavenly Father, tonight we're asking that you provide the wisdom that each one of these council members, the staff, and the city employees will need in order to make the decisions that best serve this community. Heavenly Father, we depend upon you. We look upon you each and every day. We ask that you bless this city. Bless it, Heavenly Father. Just put a band of angels around it. We ask that you be with our county. Be with our state of California. We know, Heavenly Father, Jesus, that we're in a time of drought, and not only that, but we have fires, Heavenly Father, that seem to be ravaging some of this great state. We just ask, Heavenly Father, for your blessing. We ask, Heavenly Father, that you bless this great United States that you've given us, that we might do your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Council Authority Member Janine Tucker.
Here.
Council Authority Member Leanne Jones-Cruz.
Here.
Council Authority Member Cal Campbell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chair Darlene Barbara Martinez.
Here.
Mayor Chair Richard D. O'Brien.
Here. Conflict of interest. Any council authority member or staff who has direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Seeing none, we'll move to public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person. Each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, state your name and city of residence. Make your comments directly to the City Council LRA Board. Do we have public comment?
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Governors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Edward Jones. I live at 2107 Patterson Road in Mobile Home Park. A lot of people already know me as Fast Eddie. I have a plan here. It shows they want to put a sidewalk on Patterson Road, and that is on the east side of the railroad. I was wondering if there's any plan that the Planning Commission has done anything for a sidewalk in front of the lumberyard on the west side of the railroad track on Patterson Road. For bicycles and scooters, it's quite dangerous because people go like hell over that railroad track. You see little bits of items all over the track. I was wondering if there's some way we could get hold of the lumberyard, at least put in a sidewalk to the railroad area, and then from there we can do other means, contact other people take care of a sidewalk on the railroad. There's not much room. I don't know if you've seen anybody going across that railroad track with a scooter, but if you have a semi and going by, and they usually wait until the person on the scooter gets across the track. I thought I'd bring this notion, so maybe somebody can try and do something about this. It is a safety factor, I believe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comment, we'll move to the consent calendar consistent of item, I'm sorry. I don't wait, please.
I know you don't wait. You didn't even look up. I was
I
waiting
did
for you to
too.
look
I
up.
looked up.
Good evening, council members and Mayor O'Brien. My name is Vicki Holt, and I'm the branch manager at the Riverbank Library. I'd like to tell you about our upcoming programs at the library. Story time starts back up September 14th and will go until the end of November. Mayor O'Brien will read to the children and their families on Monday, September 14th at 11, right after my story time. The rest of the Mayor Book Club times this session will be on the first Mondays of the month at 11 o'clock. Children are invited to make crazy pencil toppers tomorrow at 3:30. The library provides the supplies and pencils. The book club, we just finished a book today. We had our discussion, but our next book club is on September 22nd at 4 p.m., and we're reading Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. We have a regular group of about 6 to 8 people, and we have a lot of fun. 2 crafts are coming up in September. We're going to be doing origami on September 16th at 3:30, and then we have a teen craft using duct tape at September 23rd at 3:30. And then you might want to know there have been improvements in the Wi-Fi at the library. It is now available 24/7, so you can even park outside of the library any time of the day and use our Wi-Fi. And the login process is much easier. You do not need a library card to log in, so you can just get right on, just like Starbucks. All programs at the library are free to the public. It is because of the 1/8 of a cent dedicated sales tax that these library services are available. Please stop by and visit. You're welcome anytime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, I've complained about the concrete there on Crawford and Oakdale Road, and it was an eyesore and an impediment to traffic. But I'm glad to see that the City Council has taken action. They did paint it, so thank you.
Hello, everybody. Back again.
Name, please.
My name is John Foley. I'm a resident of Riverbank for close to 30 years. This is not my first time here. You all know me well. I've complained to all of you personally, together and alone, complaining about the way you shut the city water off to people. I brought it to your attention that the state of California has rules and regulations about how to do that. It's been now over a year. Not one of you has called me to tell me that you've done anything. You shut my water off. I brought it to City Council. I complained. I asked for my $50 back. This city manager decided that she was going to turn my water off a second time because I didn't want to pay the $50. After I paid my bill in full, she shut my water off a second time. Now, you can mess with me. I'm a big boy. I can take it. But when you mess with my family, you open up a can of worms you don't want to open up.
Threat.
No.
Okay, please, don't make it a threat.
It's not a threat. I'm just going to keep on coming back here and calling for this city manager to be replaced. You got 6 people up here who all know the rules and regulations that I've quoted you. They're legal rules, and you've done nothing. At least nothing's been brought to my attention. I was just here a couple weeks ago and brought that to your attention that it's been a year, and still nothing from any of you. I want to know why. You shouldn't be shutting people's water off without posting a notice. Thank you.
I didn't intend to get up here, but I'd just like to tell you that I have all the faith and confidence in the world in our city manager. She has 100% of my support, and the city has a regulation that says if you don't pay your water bill, they shut your water off. They shut my water off, and I was the mayor of this town, and my wife forgot to pay the water bill, and I was taking a shower to come to the city council meeting, and the guy was out there turning the water off, and I was in the shower with all that soap all over me. So, I mean, you have rules and regulations, and I don't think it was $50 then, but I think I had to pay a little bit more than what just the water bill was, but, you know, I learned a lesson, and you know, so I say that we do have standards that we go by, and stick to them. Thank you very much.
I'm Haskell Moore, 3848 Patterson Road.
Excuse me,
I
no
too
more
wasn't going to say anything
conversations.
tonight, but the person that's been violated won't come down here to complain about it. I have a neighbor. The last month, she went in to pay the water bill on the last day it was due, and there's a big line there. Everybody's busy, and some lady there, she didn't know, couldn't remember who told her, just drop it in the drop box and we'll take care of it before the day's over. She dropped it in the drop box. The next day or second day after that, she I forget how she went back down to the city to, you know, make sure it got paid or what, but they charged her $20 service charge for a late fee. Might want to know that.
Just for the people that are watching at home, apparently they don't have any volume.
Just on what system was it? Is it Comcast or UVerse? Charter? Or Charter, I'm sorry.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm going to vacation every year about 5 weeks. Why I should pay it for the garbage, which not using it? I already asked before. They said to come to the city and tell we stop at pick up the garbage, but they did not do it, and I still pay for the garbage by that time which I am not at home.
Hello, good evening. My name is Eddie Cuellar. I live over in Crossroads on Winding River Court. We've been noticing a lot heavier traffic on Squire Wells and Donner Trail, just north of the roundabout. There's no stop sign for the traffic traveling on Squire Wells. You see a lot of people driving. They don't turn on their blinker, and you think they're going straight, or you know, they are making that turn. So you're sitting there waiting and waiting when you had a clearing, and then all of a sudden you don't have a clearing. Is there anything we can do about maybe getting a stop sign put there on Squire Wells to prevent any accidents and make the ease of traffic a lot easier for residents of that neighborhood?
All right, bring it back to the council.
Mayor, if I could just say that we had staff who did confirm that there is volume on Charter Channel. So
Okay.
I'm not sure what that is. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate or restate what Mr. Neal stated. I have complete faith and confidence in our city manager, not only in her performance in difficult times, but also her planning abilities and her abilities to bring to clarity some of the issues that have been swept under the rug or have not been dealt with for a good number of years. This council this year is dealing with a lot of unpaid bills that became due because everyone thought 2015 was going to be a great year. Well, 2015 is not a great year. And so I commend you on your abilities and keep going the way you want. Are there any comments you need to make on some of the other remarks?
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much for your vote of confidence. I do want to comment that a couple of the items that were brought up about questions in regards to the trash rate and why you pay the trash rate while you're on vacation, as well as the stop sign at Squire Wells. If the individuals that brought those up could give their name and phone number to Kathleen Cleek and or Michael Riddell, they'll be happy to follow up with them on those matters. So we can, one, to clarify the trash rate process, and then in regards to the stop sign, to be able to take a look at that and see if that meets the standards for a stop sign at that location. So be happy to do that. In regards to Mr. Ritchie's comments about the pork chop in the middle of the road, that is something that was part of the conditions of approval for the Crossroads neighborhood development. It does seem a bit awkward, but that was something that was again part of the conditions of approval. It is not something that we have really the liberty to remove at this point. As development occurs along Oakdale Road, it is possible that there might be alternatives around that would allow for a more free flow from Crawford onto Oakdale. So that's
Going to have to if we do develop.
yes. So in regards to
The billing,
the billing.
the late fee, when it was.
Oh, in regards to the late fee, if Mr. Moore could contact Maricela and give her a little bit more information, she can look into that to find out when that was deposited. We did have a situation a few months back where the drop box was broken into. Also, it's possible that it was put in there and somehow there was an oversight. So be happy to double check that on behalf of the resident. And then in regards to Mr. Jones' comments about the sidewalks, Kathleen Cleek, again, would be a person who could communicate a little bit about more of the program. And if he's inclined to stay, she's going to be providing an overview of the capital improvement program later on this evening that will talk in detail about some of the sidewalk projects that are being proposed.
I won't mention the City Hall Annex over the weekends. People drop bills off at my place.
Oh, yes. I am sorry for that, Mayor. I do appreciate you providing additional service to our community.
Okay. And they know to get paid.
Yeah. And I should know if Kathleen and Michael would raise your hands so the people in the audience that we need to, you could just let you know. So super, great. Thank you.
Moving on to the consent calendar, consistent of item 3A, waive reading, item 3B, approval of the April 16th, 2015 special city council minutes. Item 3B1, approval of August 11th, 2015 city council and local redevelopment authority minutes. Item 3C, response to the findings of the 2015 Stanislaus County civil grand jury. Is there anyone wish to pull any item or have comments on any items? Anyone from the public have any comments on the consent calendar? Seeing none, I move it back to the council for recommendation and or action.
Make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Council Authority members Campbell,
Yes?
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chair Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5. Before we go on, after item 5.1, which is a public hearing, I'm going to pull item 6.3 and place it behind item 5.1 so we could consider 6.3 after 5.1. Item 5.1 is a public hearing, which was properly noticed in the general local newspaper, and is 5.1, consideration of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, accepting and closing the Proposition 218 public notice and protest process as it relates to the proposed rate increases for sewer and water services.
Mayor, members of the City Council, this evening, Maricela Garcia, our Director of Finance, will provide an overview of the process to date, the proposed water and sewer rates that have been publicized to every postal customer and every property owner in the City of Riverbank, and present to you a series of recommendations.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Tonight is the culmination of what is known as a Proposition 218 hearing, at which time we will consider a proposal for increases to both our water and our sewer rates. Proposition 218 for the public is known as the Right to Vote on Taxes Act and was approved by voters in November of 1996. This act established requirements for imposing or increasing property-related taxes, assessments, fees, and charges, of which sewer and water rates are considered property-related fees. The proposed fee or the fee increase must demonstrate the following. It must demonstrate that the cost of service that the revenues generated will not exceed the requirements for the costs of the service. Second, that the revenues can only be used for the purpose for which the fee was imposed. And also has to show that the fee shall not exceed the proportional cost of service that is attributable to that specific type of customer. Currently, we have residential, commercial, and industrial customers that we apportion our fees to. The following procedural items are required as part of Proposition 218. The first is a noticing requirements. We must mail notices to all property owners who are affected by this rate increase. The notice has to include the basis for the fee, the reason for the fee, the date, time, location of the public hearing, and at which time we'll consider these proposed rates. In addition to mailing our notices to property owners, we've also mailed notices to the tenants. And so for those property owners that are out of town, they would have received one at their Riverbank location. And if they had tenants, then their tenants received it. And then they also received one at their out-of-town location. The second requirement, as per Proposition 218, is a public hearing, which is what we're holding today. And so this public hearing must be held prior to adopting the rate increase and must be no less than 45 days after the notices were mailed. The third requirement is that the rate increase is subject to a majority protest. So if more than 50% of the affected property owners submit their written protests against the rates, then the increase cannot be considered for adoption. So in our case, we did mail notices out to all of the property owners on July 8th, 2015, which was 48 days prior to tonight's hearing. The notice provided all of the information on the proposed fees for both water and sewer, established the purpose of the fee, which was for operations and maintenance of our water and sewer systems, for capital improvements, for debt service, and to establish emergency reserves. It also set forth the date of the public hearing for today at 6:00 p.m. There were 7,210 parcels that received notification. There was approximately over 8,000 that were actually mailed. As I mentioned, some of them do receive other mailings at their out-of-town locations. And so a property owner who may own 3 different properties here in Riverbank and who lives out of town would have still received the 3 notifications at their out-of-town address because of the requirements of Prop 218. A majority protest for our particular city would require at least 3,606 written protests to have been received. And so I'm going to move on to discussing how the rates were developed, and then we'll look at each rate individually. The rates were developed to determine whether there was revenue sufficiency, which means that the revenue should at least cover the annual costs of the service that's being provided to our constituents or residents. Excuse me. The rate impact, the rate should be designed to minimize as much as possible and the impact on the ratepayers. The fees must be equitable. They should be fairly allocated amongst all customer classes based on their estimated demand. They should be practical, and that they should be simple in form, easy to administrate, and easy to understand for our customers. And they should provide an incentive in relations to our water services. The rate should provide an indicator to our customers as to their water use and their ability to conserve water and use water efficiently. So first we'll start with the sewer rate proposal that is being presented. A little bit of history on our sewer fund and our sewer rates. The City of Riverbank has not raised its sewer rates since 2008. This last rate increase was not due to a rate study that was prepared, but due to a consumer price index increase that was built into the ordinance that was in effect back in 2008. The current rate that is applicable to our single-family dwellings is of $20.15 per month. We do have some out-of-town or out-of-city customers that have a rate of $21.26 per month. The proposal here is that we would eliminate that out-of-town price difference, only because the cost of providing them service isn't any more than what we provide to our current residents because of where they are located. Our commercial rates are variable based on the type of retail that it is, or commercial business that it is. We have rates that were established for areas such as automobiles, commercial laundromats, and offices. So based on the category, is the commercial businesses pay an additional variable rate, which is attributable to their water usage. And so our proposal, or the proposal that was presented to the residents and customers, would look at an initial increase from $20.15 to $25.79 as of November 21st, 2015. That does represent a 28% increase over the current amount. We are looking at a 5-year increase through July 1st of 2019. And the second rate increase would be in effect as of July 1st of 2016. It would be $33.01, which would also represent a 28% increase. On July 1st, 2017, we would have an additional increase to $40.28. And July 1st, 2018 of $47.12. And with the final rate increase in July 1st of 2019 to $49.48. And so this monthly base proposal would apply to all of the residential and commercial customers. Now, our variable rates are also set to increase for our commercial customers. We're looking at an initial increase in November 1st, 2015. What our consultant has recommended is that the city establish commercial classifications. And so instead of having 20 different variable rates based on the type of business that that an individual may have, they may just fall into a group or a category, and there's a rate established for that. And so we have a group 1, which would be schools without cafeteria and offices, which would be considered in the low class. Group 2, which includes our commercial, hospitals, extended care facilities, markets without delis, automobile services, and laundromats. Group 3 are schools with cafeterias, and restaurants and short order facilities, and markets with delis. And then the final group is a restaurant that has a full kitchen. And so there are 4 different tiers that were established and 4 different rates. Some of you may note that under the proposed rate for November 21st, 2015, some of the rates actually decreased for some of these groups in comparison to the current rate. The reason for that is because we are looking at establishing rates that are equitable amongst the commercial class. Future variable rates for commercial businesses will be considered in April of 2016. Since these rates were developed after the notice was sent to all of the property owners, we were not able to include these within the notice that was sent out, and so we will be doing a second notification to commercial customers only, as this particular rate is only attributable to them. So future rates will be recommended for our commercial customers to become effective July 1st, 2016 through July 1st, 2019. This is the financial forecast that was developed by our rate consultants. So as they were looking at future cost increases to our operations and maintenance, as they were looking at our capital improvement needs, as they were looking at debt service that is currently owed or that could be owed in the future based on capital projects, they determined, and you'll notice there is an orange line that runs through the middle at around the $2 million range. That is the amount of revenues that were anticipated to be received should the city decide to not move forward with a rate increase. The amount of expenditures that are necessary are represented by the different bars. So in 2014-15, there was almost $6 million in capital improvements that were needed to be funded, and the revenues that were to be received from our rates would not have been sufficient to cover that. The method in which we were able to provide sufficient revenues for the $6 million in expenses is the fact that we had received a loan for the wastewater treatment plant improvement project or energy efficiency project. And so we were able to issue that loan in 2014, which helped to cover those expenses for that capital project. But should we have decided to move forward with that project without having any financing source, the revenues we receive from our customers would not have been sufficient for that. Moving forward, based on the increase in operations and maintenance as well as the capital projects that are anticipated, we would continue to not have enough revenue coming in annually in order to cover those costs. The green bar itself represents our operations and maintenance, and so we would have barely had enough to cover operations and maintenance. The red portion of these bars represents our debt service, and so during the next 5 years we would not have had sufficient monies to cover our operations and maintenance as well as our debt service owed to bondholders and to banks that we have loans outstanding with. In addition to the state, we currently have 2 loans outstanding with the state as well. Our sewer operations and maintenance fund has been working at a deficit for quite some time. This deficit represents the fact that revenues that are received on an annual basis are not sufficient to cover the annual operations and maintenance of the system. For 2012 and 13, going forward, we started to notice this deficit. We can say that one of the major reasons why this occurred in 2012-13 was the loss of a major commercial customer here in our downtown. There was a cheese company that was located here that had an industrial permit that provided almost $200,000 to $300,000 in industrial permit revenue annually to the city. That business is no longer here in the city, and with that, we had a loss in revenue. The preliminary estimate for the fiscal year that we are currently closing for 2014-15, which ended as of June 30th, is at $327,000. And the estimate for our upcoming year, should there be no rate increase, is $183,000.
Before you go on, what is our reserve in that right now?
Right now, it is at $100,000, but that's...
So we'll have to use $83,000 of the general fund.
Correct. Part of the rate study that was developed was looking at some of the capital improvement projects that were necessary to keep our sewer system operating. We looked at two different types of projects, those that were highest priority of $4.7 million and some additional capital improvement projects that were proposed. Looking at the high priority projects, we had items on there such as the wastewater treatment plant efficiency project that was almost completed at the wastewater treatment plant. We're looking at road improvements entering our wastewater treatment plant. Equipment protection, currently we have a lot of equipment that sits outside at our wastewater treatment plant and is not protected in any way from the sun. So we have damage that happens to our equipment. And then we also have pond number 9 at the wastewater treatment plant that has not been completed and that we would like to have complete. Some of the additional capital improvement items are actually in relations to upgrading sewer lines that most are well over 60 to 70 years old here at the city. A lot of these sewer lines have not been upgraded from the original lines that were installed. We have found sometimes that when we go back to fix a leak that some of the pipe is missing. And so we know that there are additional lines out there that have not been addressed and that need to be updated to current standards. We hope to do all of these projects in order to avoid any sewer sanitary overflows, to make sure that our lift stations are properly working and that our treatment plant can treat any of the sewage that comes in. In order to, if you'll recall, in May we did present some initial rates to the City Council. We were directed to look at ways in which we could reduce the impact to our residents by looking at the rates being phased in over an extended period of time. In order to do that, we had to eliminate some of the projects that we were proposing. And the 4 projects that we have listed here for $1 million are actually upgrades to lines that are aging. So at some point we will need to address that, and it may end up, if anything happens on an emergency basis, that we use the emergency reserve in order to address that. This is just a sampling of a rate survey that was prepared just to give some comparison for the current rate. Although we know that each individual agency has its own issues and capital improvement projects that they are funding through their rate, we did want to provide some sort of comparison for our residents to know where our rates currently are at $20.15 to where they will be in 2019-20 when the final rate increase is effective.
At this point, Ripon is considering, as well as Modesto, considering significant hikes in their sewer rates also. I know a lot of the other ones are this, although this doesn't tell us that we're in line with the other communities, but is just our own requirements.
Yes. And that takes me to our discussion on the water rate proposal that was presented to all of our customers and to the City Council. A brief history on our water rates is that water rates have not been increased since July of 2010. This was also due to a consumer price index increase that was built into the ordinance that was in effect at that time. That increase is no longer effective, and so we have not had that rate increase in 5 years. The City of Riverbank currently charges its customers a bi-monthly flat fee, which is based on meter size and includes the first 1,000 cubic feet of water that's used, which is approximately 7,500 gallons of water for our residents. In addition, those residents that exceed the 1,000 cubic feet usage of water are charged on a declining block volumetric rate. What that means is that there are 3 different tiers where based on water usage, and in reality, the more water you use, the less you will most likely end up paying here at the City of Riverbank. Prop 218, or some recent court proceedings at the Supreme Court have deemed that these tiered rates are actually not valid. And so the city is proposing moving away from a tiered rate and establishing a fixed variable rate similar to what we have for the sewer services. So residents will pay a bi-monthly flat fee for the first 1,000 cubic feet, and then we will have just one single rate for any water usage over and above that. What that does do is that it does promote more water conservation to our residents, because they will know exactly how much each cubic foot of water costs, versus now they have to sit down and do a calculation, and it will work to their benefit the more water they use. The water rate proposal, as I mentioned, is based on the type of meter size that each customer has. And for our residents that are in the audience and that are at home, a typical single-family home will have a 1.5 inch and below. And typically it will be a 1 inch and below water meter size that they will have. So that first tier of base rates is the rate increase that our residential customers will see. 2 inch and above may include some duplexes or multifamily housing units, but will most likely be commercial businesses. And so those will be the rates that would be effective for them. The variable charge would be applicable to all of our customers regardless of classification. And then we've also proposed what's known as a drought surcharge. This drought surcharge would only be applicable during state-declared droughts. What it would allow the city to do is to continue to fund ongoing maintenance and operations during those times when we have asked our residents to conserve. And yes, it may seem odd that we would be charging an additional fee during times when we have asked our residents to conserve water. What we are hoping to do is to be able to cover our annual ongoing fixed cost that will remain there regardless if our residents use more or less water. We do have utility costs that would remain. We do have line repairs that would remain. We do have all of the salaries for our water meter, our water department. There are fixed administrative charges that the water system has that we must fund in order to continue operations. And so this drought surcharge would allow us to continue to fund that fixed portion during times when we know that the variable charge rates will not be, we will not be generating any revenue because our residents are conserving water. When the drought is no longer declared an emergency by the state, then that drought surcharge will go away.
Excuse me. Marcel,
Did-
can you explain what the variable charge is? That per cubic foot, per 1,000 cubic feet? What is that?
That variable charge that we are proposing would be for per cubic foot over and above 1,000 cubic feet. This was the financial forecast that was prepared for the upcoming 5 years should the city not consider a rate increase moving forward. The blue line that we see represents the revenues or reserve fund balance that is being held by the water fund. You'll note that in 15-16 and in fiscal year 16-17, we still have some reserve revenue, reserve funds that remain that allow us to continue funding operations and maintenance. But the 3 fiscal years after that and ongoing, should no rate increase be proposed, we would no longer have reserve funds available in order to meet our ongoing expenses. What that also represents is the fact that we are using those reserve funds to fund our ongoing operations and maintenance, and that the revenues coming in from our customers are not sufficient to pay for those annual costs. This is just a brief overview of the structural surplus and deficit. So this is the difference between the revenues that we receive and the expenditures that we pay out. You'll notice in fiscal year 2012-13, we had quite a large deficit that we experienced of $341,000. We were able to fund that through the reserves. And our preliminary estimate for fiscal year 2014-15, which we are currently working on closing now, is at $235,000.
It says sewer fund, but this is your water fund.
Oh, yes,
structure,
I
so-
do apologize for that. It is our water fund. As part of developing the new proposed rates, we did look at some high priority capital improvement projects and some additional projects that are being proposed. The high priority projects, I think the largest of the projects that we're looking at in terms of the water fund is the water meter reading system. And so this system would allow the city to install new water meters throughout the city so that those that are aging or no longer efficient would be reading efficiently. We do have water meters that are still being read manually. That means that our employees have to walk from home to home in order to read these water meters, which is not a very efficient use of their time. We do read meters every other month, which means 6 months out of the year, our water department staff is dedicated to reading water meters. That's 6 months out of the year, unfortunately, that our staff is not available to maintain our water system. So this system that's being proposed would allow us to install a fixed network that would let finance read all the water meters from one central location. It would allow our residents to log on online and view their water usage on an hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis, and allow them to set parameters for themselves on water usage. They would also be able to view their billings online so that they can compare billings from one month to the next. So this system would allow our staff to now dedicate their time to maintaining our system and our water wells. Some of the additional water capital improvement projects that are being proposed would also involve replacing water lines that are aging. The water department inherited a lot of these water lines from the initial Riverbank water company that existed here in the city of Riverbank, and that was before the city was even incorporated. So some of these lines are at least 70 to 80 years old. And are in dire need of being replaced. And so the rate increase did take these projects into consideration to be funded through the rate proposal. Similar to what we did with the sewer, in order to ease some of the increases that were being initially proposed for our customers, we did have to eliminate some capital improvement projects in order to bring the rate increase down. And so some of those included some work to storage tanks, replacing some backflow prevention devices at some of our locations throughout the city, as well as installing a water line loop at 3rd and Patterson. And this will also provide you, similar to what we did with the sewer, as it's not a direct comparison to our neighboring cities, but does give our customers some idea of where our rates would fall in comparison to other cities. Currently, the monthly base rate is $14.65. At the end of the 5-year increase in 2019-20, our rate would be at $27.07 per month. And so that does bring me to the end of my presentation. Our recommendation for the City Council tonight is that you would open the Proposition 218 public hearing. You would receive protests to the proposed rate increase for our sewer and our water services. In order for those to be counted, those must be received in writing. For anybody who is here at our City Council meeting and would like to submit a protest, we do have blank protest forms that have been provided in the back. Once you have closed that public hearing, our city clerk would provide an accounting of those protests that were received, and then the City Council may consider a resolution which accepts and closes the Proposition 218 public notification and protest process. If less than a majority of protests is received, then the City Council can consider authorizing staff to bring forward an introduction of an ordinance in order to adopt these rates at the September 22nd, 2015 meeting.
At the end of 5 years, what would be the reserve funding availability for the sewer and for the water?
Our reserves would be set at about $1.5 million for each.
There are businesses and multi-unit dwellings, such as some what is it called, mobile home parks, duplexes, apartment complexes that have just one connection. Is there going to be any adjustment to see if we could at least put the flat rate fee against each one of the dwellings, whether it's monitored or not individually?
Yes, so what I have asked the legal counsel to do, who is assisting me in drafting the ordinances that will be presented should less than a majority protest be received, is that we include language within our water ordinance that would allow for that. That it not be based on connection, but that it be based on some type of equivalent dwelling unit. So if there is a duplex, then we would consider having it pay 2 base rates versus just 1.
It would also have to be considering in-law buildings that's behind.
Correct.
Okay, good. Before I open it up, any clarifications needed? Okay, I opened 218 public hearing process and received a written protest on the increases for the water and sewer services.
The variable water rate. You showed earlier on the sewer rate, the volumetric rates in the sewers that weren't included in the ballot, so nobody knows that they're there, but now they're part of this vote on the commercial, that those volumetric rates are going to be tiered and go up over the 5 years. Now you're saying the same thing with the water rates for the extra charge if you go over, was it so much per cubic foot? And then it's going to gradually increase for every, what is that, 100 cubic feet, and then it goes up more and more and more. That's not on the ballot either. All the ballot shows is a variable charge of 1 charge. It doesn't show that if you go 100 cubic feet, is that what it is more, then you get more? Then it goes higher? I believe that's what Maricel was showing there. It's not here. It wasn't, ratepayers were not notified of that at all. Have a question on the sewer study, because in the sewer study in the reserve, it's shown over 5 million. I don't know if there's a difference in reserve that you're talking about, but the reserves in that sewer study on that page that shows the reserves lists over 5 million. Some of the projects in that CIP are, because I know our rates are supposed to be available to our property on this Prop 218 thing that we use. For example, if you're putting a line from Jackson to the Galaxy Theater, that's not available to anybody else but that property, and yet it's being used on the CIP rates to raise all the ratepayers' rates. Some of those things are for developers, not for us. The ballot, like I said, the ballot is misleading because it doesn't show the sewer, different change in the sewer. It doesn't show this in the water that it's actually going to be higher than it is. It only lists the flat rate. It doesn't list the typical rate, which is much higher than the flat rate is. The ballot states that you have to deliver the ballots before August 25th, when it's actually tonight they could be delivered, but that's not what your ballot says. The CIP thing, one of the projects on that CIP thing is the Snyder Electric. And that was funded with, the agreement was funded with money the city saves, goes to pay that. And if you don't make that much money, then Snyder steps in and pays it if you don't make that much savings. It's also included in the CIP on the sewer thing to be funded with this rate increase. So you're funding it one way through your agreement with them, and now you're funding it a second time through the rate increase. That's like double funding. Because your rates are going to be so high, if your rate increase for a typical rate by 5 years is going to be over $200 for a two-month bill. That's astronomical when you include the garbage and all the other stuff on there. As far as the drought surcharge, I still haven't got a mandate. I've asked for it several times. The city's never provided me with a mandate. There's no guidelines, nothing that says what you can do with it, how you can do it, or anything. They sent me a fact sheet on water conservation, which doesn't even mention the drought surcharge. Tells me absolutely nothing. And yet you're putting this drought surcharge on. The one other thing that I would like the council to answer, on May 12th, on the first meeting, you okayed the charges, the rates you wanted, the scenarios. You came back in June and you amended them. Supposedly, you were amending them to help the taxpayers. But this is what you did. And I'd like you to explain what you're going to do with all this extra money. Okay, you amended the water rate by decreasing the surcharge, but leaving the water rate the same. You also eliminated 6 projects from the CIP at $600,000. But we're still paying the same amount we would have paid if they were still in there. The sewer rate you amended by increasing it by $1.71. Then you eliminated 4 sewer projects at a total cost of $1 million. So we were actually paying more, but you took $1 million worth of projects out of there. I would like you to explain to me where that $1.6 million is going to go, because you're supposed to show where you're using that, where that money's going. You're removing the projects, but you're not changing the rates increase. And I'd like you to tell me what you're going to do with that extra $1.6 million.
Thank you.
I'd just like to mention that I just did a little quick math, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, but $4,700,000 to change meters, 7,210 houses comes out to $651. That sounds like a lot of money. Are they really that much money to replace each meter? And also, I understand we're not replacing all of them. So if they're not all being replaced, what do you need $4,700,000 for? And another thing, on these rates, I mean, it's great if everybody had the same size lot. I know I have a pretty big lot in my house. I don't live in Crossroads, where they have postage stamp yards. You know, some people who've been here for a long time have big yards, and so it seems like they're going to be getting excessive water bills if they want to keep their yard green at the rate that you're proposing. So it's just something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pascal Moore, 3840 Patterson Road, Riverbank. I think anytime you double the rate on water or sewer or both, it's too high. I'm looking at myself personally, I'm looking at water bills. This is without counting my garbage. Water and sewer alone, I'm pushing like $70-some a month, right at 100, closer to 100 probably. I'm paying the services on 3 homes. I'm going to be paying, not counting my garbage, I'm going to get here somewhere. I'm going to be paying $459.30. Every water bill comes through. But in the 5 years. I don't have garbage on there yet. It's going to be more than that because I just use your basic figure real quick. That's kind of high. That's too high. So, because I rent property, I pay the services. I know what you're going to say. Let them pay the services. How much can you push on to a renter? You're going to do so much. And next thing you know, you're getting $500 for a $900 house. It don't work that way. Also, I don't know why you needed to hire someone to be a water cop. Enough people are calling in, reporting their neighbors for abusing water uses. So the $25,000 I guess you got for that to have a water cop, that could have been used for somebody reading meters. Just thought.
Thank you.
Once again, Eddie Cuellar from Winding River Court and Crossroads. I would like to see if instead of going with the fixed rates, we break it down on a per water usage per house per family. 2 people in a family versus a house that's got 7 or 8 people in a family, we're going to use a lot less water. If you've got a lot of elderly people live in our community that don't use a lot of water, they're going to be charged the same as that same family that has 7 or 8 people in their house. It's not fair. We have meters there for a reason to gauge how much water is used per house. Let's use that to charge us our bill accordingly. If we use a lot of water, we pay a higher rate. We use a little bit of water, we pay a lower rate. That only seems fair. And also, I would like to see if you guys could put on the table that instead of this being adopted by the city council, let it go to the community and let everybody vote on it in November when we have our elections.
Thank you.
Mayor and City Council. Part of the problem that you guys have inherited is that the former councils and administrations really didn't do their homework. The fact that rate increases haven't occurred that could have been more minimal since 2008 is not acceptable. You're dealing now with a big cow pie that's dropping your lap, but I think other things also need to be looked at to be sure that we don't end up with this kind of thing, which is it's not good at all. The increases are, as mentioned before, steep, especially for senior people. Right now we do at St. Vincent de Paul, we try to aid a few of the people that come in that need their water bill supplemented, otherwise they're going to get turned off. But the thing is people on low income, whether they're seniors or they're workers out in the field or whatever they are, right now they probably spend what they make in January, and then when February comes they get a 2-month bill, and that's a big jump. Now if we're going to increase rates to double in a couple of years what they are now, you definitely have to go to monthly billing. There's just no way around it. You got to do it. Now, if part of the deal is you have to have these meters to read, right now I read mine every day. I go out with my little thing and I take the lid off, and a couple times I can't read it because it's in between a number, but I've got it plotted. I know notes on all this stuff, so I know when I've watered my yard, which is a mess currently, no gardens anymore, none of that. But I look at what we're doing. As the other gentleman said, we only have 2 people there. we don't use a lot of water. And I think of the people who have 5 or 6 in their family in a bigger house and bigger this and that, and more washing and more everything else. This is really going to be tough. So I think that it's essential to somehow or another figure out a way, even if you can't get the meters put in for 3 years, that you can give people a monthly deal. Otherwise, you're going to see all kind of people shut off. They just can't afford it because they spend everything they have when they have it, and then all of a sudden you get a bill for $200. It's not going to cut it. They're going to be turned off. So that's another thing that I think you have to look at. Okay, got that covered. Yeah, that's, like I say, there's, the other thing in there is when you do look at it and you say, okay, you use 1,000 square feet and it's $35 or whatever it is. And then the next 1,000 cubic feet at 0.35 cents is going to be another $30. But if they go on to 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 extra square feet or extra cubic feet, it's a big bill. And when I look at some of our days, we're only using 50 gallons. But some of these families are going to be looking at great big expenses. So I don't know if there's some way to maybe spread it out over a few more years or do something of that nature, but certainly you have to look at some way to let people know when they get that bill where the bucks are coming from. Now this is very interesting sitting here. We've got all of 25 people, but you've got 20,000 out there that don't do this stuff. But if you can see where the breaks are and where you're going to get hit, then that might help the conservation part of it, and people look at something a little bit differently. But right now, you walk into our water department or anything, and they really can't give you any good information. They can tell you maybe that the average family uses 15,000 gallons or whatever it is, but it's not broken down by house size, by lot size, by any of this kind of stuff, which the smart meters would give you. PG&E, I can go in there every day and see what my thing is compared to whatever I want to compare it to. Last month, last year, total month, total day. And that's the sort of thing, if you're going to manage your water, you have to have better information than what we have right now. And plus, it's got to be on something other than every other month.
Thank you.
Liz Cuellar, I live also on Winding River Court. I just wanted to see if we could get an extension on these ballots that are being posted, because I asked half my neighborhood and they said they thought it was junk mail when they got it and tossed it. When you open this, the ballot is on the back page. So when you see it, it does look like junk mail. It looks like something that you get every month. So if we can extend it, I would personally walk around and talk to my neighbors and tell them what it's about.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Loretta Larson, P.O. Box 191, Riverbank. You know, actually, I was appalled by your notice. I, too, almost threw it away, and I'm very cautious of my mail. And your information is so excessive that you can't understand it. It's enough to make anyone who saw the ballot throw it away. Anyway, based on that, I'll proceed with the things that I can, realizing that when I try to separate sewer from water, it gets pretty difficult. So you'll have to figure out which one I'm referring to. First of all, it's my opinion that the city will be in violation of Proposition 218 if it passes this proposed water and sewer rate increase tonight. And you can refer to the Section 6 of the Right to Vote Act, item B, 1, 3, and 4, which are quoted by your consultants. Also, you have failed to disclose in your flyer the 5% annual increase that you will put on your sewer charge after the 5 years is up. It is not in your notice. There is no ending date for the drought charge. You say on there that possibly you will remove it, but it's nothing like it was explained by the woman who spoke earlier explaining the system. It has no ending date. And droughts come and go, and I don't feel that we should be charged for a drought fee any longer than there's a drought. and therefore that needs to be corrected. There needs to be an ending date. The commercial use customers' charge has not increased in most cases and has actually decreased in some cases, and you negotiate industrial rates, so no quote is given for them. You can wheel and deal with them, while the residential customers get stuck. Your new lines extend to areas of future growth and of special interests, and we, the residential customers, are expected to pay for your Christmas dream list. I think not. The city's made no adjustments in their expenses, but they're putting it all on us. You guys just keep rolling along with your excessive health benefits, salary increases, and you all know that we can barely afford what we're paying now with the economy as it is. And further, you know that Riverbank is one of the lowest income areas of the area, and many people won't be able to afford their water. So when do we have to pay for the sins of our fathers who neglected our lines? I've been here since the 60s, and they've been talking about those worn-out lines for that long. You have collected impact fees from every new development in this city with the purpose of offsetting any impacts on our water and sewer system. Where are those impact fees, and what was done with them? A reasonable increase for overhead costs is expected, but increases for CIPs of which impact fees have been collected and should be provided for the capital improvements are not acceptable. I know you are aware that if this ordinance passes tonight, that it will be subject to referendum. I want all users to be aware of this and call my number, 209-838-8571, if they are interested in working toward the defeat of this ordinance. You know, I don't understand you people. Water is essential to our life, and if it gets so expensive we can't drink it, can't water our lawns, what are we to do? It seems like there must be a better remedy than this proposal. You know, maybe extend it over a longer time, but don't pass this. You'll harm not only the people, but people's desire to live here. And then there are landlords who have leases out who pay the water, garbage, and sewer, and it's a set fee because it's never jumped like that. So they're going to have to eat the extra cost. And it will increase rent charges, which the people of this community can't afford. Also, I have property that's on two units on one water line. And there's nothing in this proposal that addresses that. So to do that now is in violation, I believe, of Prop 218. Thank you.
Charles Neal, 2312 Rio Verde Drive, Riverbank. I want to be as cordial as I possibly can in telling you that I strongly oppose this large increase. We also, at the Riverbank Assembly of God Church, deal with an awful lot of people that aren't able to pay some of their bills, you know, PG&E and rent and water bills, and we provide food for them, and it's quite an expense, you know. And not only that, but some of us that have been retired for a few years, our retirement has been really hit pretty hard, and if we had investments, I mean, it's really been quite a hit on it. I think that, you know, I know you do all you can, and I know you have decisions to make, and I know there's a lot out there that needs to be taken care of, and I know that some of the past councils have failed to adjust the problem as they should have. But I've also seen where, where maybe Riverbank has kind of been just a little bit laxed in collecting some of the fees that maybe we should have been collecting, to help offset some of these things. I didn't go into my library. I just made a couple of calls, but like Riverbank charges, and this is for the development. This is development fees that offset some of the costs that we have in some of these huge increases that's here, because those development fees can be used anywhere you want to use them. I mean, that's been a proven fact. You can charge development fees in Crossroads, and you can use them here, or you can charge them in this side of town and use them on this side of town. So, but I just made a couple of calls, and I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but I think I've said all along, I've been down here and I've talked about systems development fees, and that we needed to look at them and increase some of those. I called Escalon and asked them, for single-family dwelling, what their sewer and water connection fees were, and I spelled it out: sewer and water connection fees. And for their sewer, it's $5,998. For the water, it's $9,391. And Escalon only allows so many building permits per year. They keep control of it. But had Riverbank increased their systems development fees, where the developer would have provided these type of fees, instead of Riverbank has a $400 sewer fee and a $875 water connection fee, we would have had, just from Crossroads alone, for the sewer, if we'd have had Escalon's fees, we'd have had $14,995. And Crossroads just started building, 2005 in that area there? I mean, so, and then for the water would have had $23,477. So I think that this rate increase with some of the, what's happened is the cost of some of the items that has made it go up so greatly is, and I know in the state streets, I realize you need to replace those sewer lines. You absolutely do over there, because those sewer lines was put in, and most of them was that old clay line, and they've deteriorated. Probably what's holding is just the dirt on some of them that's some of the hard pan is caked around the line. Those I realize. I realize that, there's a lot of lines that need to be replaced. But you're replacing those on the backs of those that can least afford it. And I know the vice mayor sees a lot of senior citizens a lot of times during the week, and a lot of times works with some of those. And those are the ones that's going to be hurt. Those senior citizens that are on a fixed income that's dwindling, and there's no way that, there's no, Prop 218 doesn't give you any way that you can adjust for senior citizens. It says, everybody is charged the same. I'd ask you maybe to look at something. I remember when Shula put the big, redid the sewer treatment and brought it up, the upgrade of that, and listening to him talking and everything, and it was going to be the greatest thing there was. And it was going to be a savings of $240,000 a year. But now, see, we've rolled that $4.6 million into this rate increase. So instead of us receiving a benefit, we're getting an extra cost. And and like I said, I know I know it's tough on people to make decisions, and I know that that every one of you are concerned about every citizen in this town. And I realize that, and I know that there's an awful lot of us that see an awful lot of senior citizens, and some of these rate increases are going to be where, like in our household, there's only two of us. We when it was conserving water, with my wife and I, we make sure that dishwasher is completely full, and we make sure that washing machine is completely full, and we take sailor showers. I mean, very small amount of water. Just, as little as possible. And sometimes I even got to where I thought about taking a marine shower, and that would save even more. But I'm leaving those, that's just a catty remark that I was making there, but I'm just saying, I would appreciate it. And I would ask you if you would please look at, this rate increase and some of the things that this community that we have. Some of them are elderly, senior citizens. Some of them on fixed incomes. Some of them have low incomes. Some of them that are retired are beginning to see where they're beginning to be pinched down, and try to help them out all you can. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? I close the public hearing. It's tough when you have to take care of the sins of your fathers or the councils before you. For the sewer system, I've asked on the Biolac system that Snyder Electric installed in the savings. Could that be separated out? Hypothetically, I don't want to do another 218 process. I want to just answer just quickly. If we looked at separating some of the issues out and pass to the next council 5 years from now, some of the fixes that we need to do, I mean, what would that do? That would be catastrophic. I can't see doing a catastrophic failure. Never mind. I've talked myself out of it. The drought charge is issued by the state of California, is it not? By the executive?
That's by executive order of the governor.
And that is the same thing with, what was some of the other questions? Oh, that was the drought charge, and that's not that's extended as far out as the governor is projecting, and he could call it no longer a drought emergency, and we have to remove that. There is no ending date on that, correct?
That's correct.
And the drought has no ending date either.
Drought has, yeah. We've just been told that at the expiration of the 270 days, they anticipate that they will be extending the order and hopefully not again after that. But that's the best information we have from the state.
We just did a nexus fee study that showed, what we should be charging in our fees. And those are what we will be charging for new development as it goes on both the east side and the west side. Both those developments on the east and the west side will also add dollars into the pot that we can, that will pay for its own way. It will no longer be a crossroads built. I'm not certain how much they were reduced, but that won't happen again. At least over the next 2, maybe 4 years. All right, let's move on. Does staff have a resolution for us to?
Yes, members of City
Is there any,
Council.
well, before I do that, is there any comments?
Yeah, I had just a couple things I wanted to say. Marcella, correct me if I'm incorrect, if I'm wrong here, but the Budget Advisory Committee, which is comprised of regular citizens just like yourself, come and make proposals to the
Excuse
City
me, can
Council.
we have any sidebar go outside, please?
And I'll speak up a little louder so you can all hear me, even if you're at home. The Budget Advisory Committee, that's comprised of regular citizens that come and make recommendations to the council. They have recommended that these funds be increased for more than one for more than 1 year. Am I correct or not?
That is correct. The last recommendation made in 2014 to the City Council by the Budget Advisory Committee did request that the rate study be developed and that it be prepared every 5 years.
Thank you. There's several of the members of that Budget Advisory Committee that are sitting out in the audience, and I just wanted to put that out there. The Budget Advisory Committee is also short people, so they're down a couple members. And if you have some, I'd really like to see some of the folks that spoke up tonight come and sit on that committee so that you can make recommendations. It's really important that you understand the process and that you understand that your recommendations are coming straight to us and we're taking the recommendations. Some of these things are not just what we come up with just out of the clear blue sky. Another thing I'd like to say is that these are hard decisions to make, and if you think we sit up here and take this lightly, you're gravely mistaken. Each and every one of us live in this city too, and it doesn't mean that we get any special rate on our water. We pay the same water rates that you do. And as I'm getting up there and looking towards retirement, it makes me very, very nervous to think that, yeah, I want to retire as soon as I can, but I might have to be working a few more years because of stuff just like this. And I need to tell you that you elected city officials to sit up here and be really brave and make some of these really tough decisions. And it's not an easy one. If you think it's an easy one, as I said, it's not. It affects every single one of us. But also, I don't want to be known as the city council, and I'm speaking purely for myself, that had no regard for the budget. And in the end of the day, if you don't run a budget that is fiscally sound, the water is going to be the last of your worries, and the garbage are going to be the last of your worries. I would rather be known as the council that raised the rates, although that's really not a pretty thing to think about. But I'd rather be the council that does that than the council that runs the city down to the ground and has to declare bankruptcy like some of our fellow cities around the county. And so with that, and you can tell I'm a little emotional about it because it means that much. And so, although you get up here and talk and rant and rave about some of this stuff, come and talk to us. Come out there and participate in the budget advisory committees. Come and make your recommendations, because this is pretty serious business. When you run funds at a deficit for a long period of time, 2008 to 2009, you can't last for very much longer. And that is way more scarier to me than raising this and looking like I'm going to have to pay. Yes, I understand, and I hear every one of your comments about raising the rates. But what I'm looking at is even further down the road. Can we sustain Riverbank? Can we sustain our budget? And those are some of the things that I didn't hear up here in some of the comments, and some of the things that really frighten me. And so I will be brave and have to make some of these tough decisions for the city. You elected me to do that, and I'm doing it with a heavy heart, but with a knowledgeable heart. Thank you.
Yes, please.
I can't say it any better than my colleague to my left just said it. I'm in total agreement with her. These are heavy decisions, as she said, and we are looking at every factor, but what she said is right to the point. We're trying to make this city be able to survive its future.
I absolutely agree 100% with Councilmember Jones-Cruz and her impassioned statement this evening. These are extremely tough decisions, and I can't say it any better than she did. So I'm not gonna belabor the point or beat a dead horse here. But I think we know what we have to do, and you'll do what you have to do.
Well, in looking at the budget and looking at the numbers, if we don't raise the rates, if we have emergencies, if we have services that are not provided to our residents, to our community in a way that it should be, we have a disaster here, which you never know what may happen. If we can't cover that, I don't know what to say. I mean, you would not be pleased with us because we didn't look far enough to make sure that those funds were there to cover emergencies, to take care of the city. You turn your water on, you expect that your water is going to be clean, it's going to be pure, and if that doesn't happen, then you would be very displeased with us too.
Turn it back to staff. Let's proceed.
Members, go ahead. Mayor, just before we proceed with the resolution, we need to receive the protest and tally the vote on that.
Mayor, members of the council, Annabelle Aguilar, City Clerk. I would like to report the water rate parcel count. The total qualifying protests received prior to the public hearing are 174. Total protests received during this public hearing were 6. So a total protest received of 180, and that one, again, was for the water rate increase. For the sewer rate parcel count, total qualifying protests received prior to the public hearing is 173, and total protests received during the public hearing were 6, for a total of 179, and that was for the sewer rate increase. Thank you.
And those comments are made available.
That's right. And I must declare at this point that as a result of these numbers, a majority vote or protests were not received for the water and sewer rates. Thank you.
Members of the City Council, the resolution that's been presented to you can be considered. I would like to ask Maricela if there's anything she'd like to add before the council considers the resolution before you.
Just want to thank you for your consideration of this. I do want to address some of the items. There was a few mentions to looking at a discounted rate or looking at some alternative which would help alleviate the impact to our residents, whether that be a monthly billing or, as I mentioned, a discounted rate. We can definitely take a look at the feasibility of that. Obviously, we would have to take into consideration any additional administrative costs to the city of being able to do that. As I mentioned, currently our water department already reads meters 6 months out of the year and is not able to do maintenance all year long. So to do water meter reading every month with our current system would not be feasible. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other alternatives in terms of looking at monthly billings. In terms of a either senior or low income discount, we do have to be very careful that we are not looking at that as part of this Proposition 218 notice, because Proposition 218 does not allow for that. What the City Council is able to do through a budget appropriation is appropriate funds that are not received from the rates. So if they are not received from the rates, then we are able to use that money towards a program that can be developed for seniors or low income as the City Council desires. So that could include fees that we received from delinquencies, the late fee or penalty, which is not associated to the rate. It could include any interest income that we receive that is not associated to the rate. And so if the City Council desires, we can look into
But that's not
a
tonight.
program. But that is not for tonight, correct?
that I would like to see from even individuals, some type of input on how that could be achieved.
Mayor, at this point, we are asking the council to move to the recommendations number 2 and 3, which are on the screen, which is to, we're recommending adoption of a resolution accepting and closing the Proposition 218 public notification and protest process, and then we're asking for direction to authorize us to bring forward the ordinances
right.
that would put in place the proposed rate structure.
The resolution is in the staff report.
Yes.
It is in the staff report.
Yes, it is.
I'd like to have a motion or comments on adopting a resolution accepting and closing Proposition 218 public notification and protest process as stated in the resolution.
I move that we approve item 5.1. Is that sufficient?
5.2, which is the resolution.
I'll second it.
Do both if that was your, you could do both
Okay.
recommendations 2 and 3 together
Yes.
if that was your motion.
Yes.
Oh, you're doing 2 and 3?
Yes.
And authorizing staff to bring forward the introduction of 2 ordinances to adopt the new sewer and water rates.
That's
at
correct.
the September 22nd, 2015 City Council meeting. Okay, we have a motion to adopt the resolution and have direct staff to bring the ordinances, and we have a second.
I missed the second. Who was that? Thank you. Councilmembers Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mayor, Mr. Smith, thank you very much, and thank you for those that participated in the public hearing process. We do appreciate that.
Moving item 6.3 up to our next. This is a consideration of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank urging the state to provide new sustainable funding for state and local transportation infrastructure.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City
Let's
Council.
wait a moment while they depart.
And while that's happening, I'd like to call up Stephen Qualls to the podium. I believe he is in the adjacent room. If a member of the staff would, there you go. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Qualls.
Yep. Oh, thank you. What do I? Oh, Honorable Mayor, Council members, staff, I want to thank you very much for allowing me to come to speak to you this evening. I'd like to speak to you about the extraordinary session on transportation and infrastructure funding that the governor has called. The League of California Cities Board of Directors and a broad coalition of business, cities, and counties voted to support 7 principles related to transportation infrastructure funding. I'd like to stress this is just the principles by which to reach the goal that we're looking at. Now, these are 7 principles that I believe you can find in your packet, and you also see up here on the screen. I'll go through them briefly. Number 1, make a significant investment in transportation infrastructure. If you want to stop me on any of these, please do so. Number 2, focus on maintaining and rehabilitating the current system. These funds are meant for maintenance and rehabilitation, not for new construction. 3, invest a portion of the diesel tax and/or cap and trade revenue to high-priority goods movement projects. 4, raise revenues across a broad range of options. And these have not been, there are proposals out there, but there's been nothing put in concrete yet. They're still meeting. 5, equal split between state and local projects. 6, strong accountability requirements to protect the taxpayer's investment. And 7, provide consistent annual funding levels.
And Mr. Qualls, just can I properly introduce you for those that are in the audience or watching on TV so that they know that Stephen Qualls is a representative of the League of California Cities. He serves as the Central Valley Division representative what is your exact
Yeah,
title?
my actual title is is the Central Valley Division Regional Public Affairs Manager for the League of California Cities. And I
thank you very
apologize. I
much.
should have done that.
So-
I feel so comfortable. I should have done that for the audience. I apologize to all of you.
So just want to make sure that people understood what that is. And this item was scheduled for City Council consideration at the request of the League. There is a staff report there, but Mr. Qualls is in a better position of going through what the components of the resolution are that is before you for consideration tonight. I'll hand it back to you. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much. So the proposal is to raise $6 billion per year for a period of 10 years. And this money is to go directly to cities and counties. This will not have to go through Caltrans or any other state agencies. Now, I believe you may have in your packet a handout of the funding that will be raised for each city. Now, this funding will be split 50-50, 50% to the state and 50% to the city and to the counties. And it will be distributed just as the current formula used for distributing gas taxes are to cities and counties, called the Highway User Tax Allocation. The allocation to cities will be done by population. Allocation to the counties will be done by miles of road maintained and number of registered vehicles. We believe this is an unmatched opportunity to raise additional funding for local roads and streets. Now, under this proposal, the County of Stanislaus will receive $24.7 million. The City of Riverbank will receive $1,063,407 to be specific. Now, this proposal is along the line of an earlier bill called SB 16, which was by Senator Bell. But the difference is this money will be constitutionally protected. And what that means is it requires a 2/3 vote not only to get it to pass it, but also to get onto the ballot. Now, in order to do that, the legislature is going to need the support of both Republicans and some moderate Dems. Now, there's currently estimated to be $78 billion in deferred maintenance on the cities and county roads and streets. Caltrans estimates $59 billion in deferred maintenance on the state highway system. With the popularity of electric vehicles and hybrids, cities and counties have seen a large decrease, in their gas tax that they receive back. And Tesla has stated that within 2 years they will have an all-electric vehicle for $35,000. So with less than 2 weeks until the legislature adjourns, we need to show that cities and counties are in support of this proposal. As of today, in our division, the City of Ripon, the Merced County Board of Supervisors, the Merced County Council of Governments, and the City of Dos Palos have all adopted resolutions. But there's many more looking at doing so. City of Waterford, the San Joaquin Council of Governments, City of Merced, City of Los Banos, and the City of Livingston all are poised to place on their upcoming agendas. Now, on the 3rd of August, we met with Assemblymember Olson, and we had many people from up and down our division who showed up to show support for it. Number 2 people from the City of Riverbank were great enough to show up. Mayor Richard O'Brien and Councilmember Darlene Martinez showed up. And I know a couple of others you wanted to show up also weren't able to make it, unfortunately. But we also had representatives from the City of Modesto, Turlock, Gustine, and the Board of Supervisors, Vito Chiesa, who is also currently the president of CSAC. Now, if we don't show a lot of support for this measure, the state legislature may move forward with their own proposal, which might be only $3 billion. It might not include money for cities and counties. But we do know that labor and business have already said that if the legislature does not come forward with some kind of transportation funding increase, that they will move forward with their own initiative. And some of our concerns with that are, will it have the same safeguards as this bill does? Will it be constitutionally protected? Will there be $6 billion? Will it be a 50-50 split with the cities and the county? Will it be split based on population like a highway users tax allocation is? Will there be more money for cities like LA and San Francisco? Because those cities, even though they have a small population, have a lot more road maintenance than the other cities do. Will it pay back the $850 million that the state has siphoned off from the gas tax in the past few years? Will it stop the taking of $140 million per year in the off-highway vehicle tax? I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do those things if that's what they feel like they would like to do, but we really feel that this money should go to the cities and counties directly. We feel like this can be used more efficiently that way. And also included in this proposal is a 5% cutout for new self-help counties. That would result in $200 million for any county that becomes a self-help county by 2016. Now, I know there's been some concerns raised with some of the city managers in our division. So they were concerned, they feel like Stanislaus County gets the short end of the stick all the time. So I asked our our lobbyists on transportation if there's a way to find out how much money our cities and counties pay in as far as gas tax and how much we get back. Unfortunately, I was informed that there's no way to calculate that because the gas companies or fuel companies are the ones who collect those funds and then disperse it to the state. So there's no way to find out exactly how much we're paying. Now again, I'd like to please impress upon you, this is only the 7 principles. You're not adopting a resolution supporting any specific proposal or any way to get to raising the $6 billion. I also have a coalition sign-up sheet. If you do choose to adopt this resolution as a council, I'd really appreciate that. But also, if you'd like to join the coalition as individual members, we have a number of city council members and mayors who've already done so. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have, or the audience.
First, I'd like to congratulate the governor in calling the extraordinary session on transportation. That shows that it is a major concern of his. I believe the principles are sound. The negotiations and the riders are going to be telling how that goes. I support the principles are sound. One thing we do not specifically state is that there should be an additional tax on EVs.
And one of the proposals, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is there'll be $100 per electric vehicle fee.
As some people are against raising any new fees, but this is them paying, driving on the roads that we pay for that they do not.
Yes, they do. And earlier, the governor actually had spoken about some resistance to such a fee when SB 16 first came out for electric vehicles. He says they've worked so hard to get people into electric vehicles with the subsidies and stuff like that. But recent conversations I think he realized that they're going to have to go to some kind of formula that gets the users to pay for our roads and highways. Like I was saying, cities and counties have seen a large decrease in their gas revenues. City of Ripon, which has a large area there for gas and diesel, they've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. See, Merced has lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Modesto, because not only with the decreased use of gas, but also with the lower price, you have the sales tax also. So it's been a major problem for cities. You still have to maintain these roads. You still have to preserve these roads, but you have less funding to do so.
I've been in different parts of the world and in states where they have a vehicle tax. Every vehicle pays for what they drive and also what what their weight is. And that allows that to be equitable across the board. Whether it's a EV or whatever, you have to pay that vehicle tax. It's not a gas tax, although they do have gas tax. And talking about prices, but in one country 20 years ago, gasoline was already at $8 a gallon. And you also had to pay your vehicle tax. So, with that, any discussion on the principles as they're laid out?
I support the principles, as the mayor said, they're solid and sound, but likewise, I'm glad the governor's trying to do something about this in the assembly, because our legislature, because we are desperately in need of a lot of fixing in Stanislaus County, as are several other counties. And I don't think this is going to get any better. If you've read recently that California is settling, that's going to mean we're going to even need to have more if that's true. So I applaud the legislature for approaching this and putting something forward that may help us, because we desperately need funds in this county to get our roads better.
Question about Stanislaus County not being a self-help county, is that true?
Yes.
And that means that we're losing out on a lot of funds because we're not?
Yes.
Unfortunate.
Yes, it's very unfortunate.
There may be an initiative next year that will be on the ballot, more than likely. We have come so close, it was a shaved percentage point, about less than 0.01% failure. And the area that killed it was Oakdale and Riverbank.
You only have to travel to San Joaquin County to see what their Measure K has done for them.
Oh, I know.
Any other comments, questions? Are there any questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for action.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 6.3.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion to approve item 6.3, which is the resolution urging the state to provide new sustainable funding for state and local transportation. And we have a second.
Council members Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
I want to thank you very much. I want to thank staff for the great report they did. I appreciate you moving me up on the agenda. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Going back to item 5.2, resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, approving and adopting a 5-year capital improvement for fiscal year 2015 to 2020.
Mayor, members of the City Council, this is the annual review of the city's capital improvement projects. Kathleen Cleek, Development Services Administrative Manager, will be providing an overview of this proposal this evening, along with individuals from various representatives from the different departments will be available to answer questions as well. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Ms. Cleek.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm excited to go through this with you tonight. As we go through this, you'll notice some projects we had funding to be determined, and we found funding. And of course, we have some that we still are looking for funding. But this is for the fiscal year 2015-2020 capital improvement program. So tonight I'm recommending, I'm going to have a presentation for you tonight for you to consider and review and provide input on the proposed CIP projects for fiscal year 2015-2020. If acceptable to council, adoption of the 5-year capital improvement plan is recommended. So the 5-year capital improvement plan it's not a budget document, but rather a planning tool to be used in conjunction with the budget document. So it is a work in progress document to show transparency, and the project staff is currently managing, planning, and researching funding sources. So this helps us to see what the top priorities are, and when funding does come available, what projects we have to apply for. So each project requires a specific implementation and financing plan, possible environmental review, and at times collaboration with other agencies. Each project within the CIP requires specific City Council action at each major milestone. So the CIP is broken up into these 8 sections. We have streets, storm drain systems, sewer, wastewater treatment, water, motor pool, building facilities, and parks and recreation. So upcoming CIP projects. The presentation tonight will highlight the project staff is planning and proposing for fiscal years 2015, 2016, and 2016, 2017. Some of the capital items highlighted in this PowerPoint currently have no funding source identified. So under a funding source, it'll say TBD, to be determined. So just so you're aware of that. And they are in the CIP to inform council and the residents that these projects are a priority and staff will be diligently looking for available funding sources to cover the costs. Also in the rate study for sewer and water, we did include the high priority projects only in this, and those had the fund number, and then we had to be determined because we were not sure if that the rate increases would be going through. So just so you know, just the high priority are on this CIP. We have not listed all of them because we wouldn't have the money to complete those projects. So to start out, we'll look at the street projects. So we have slurry seal maintenance projects. For 15-16, we have $420,000 we'll be spending. For 16-17, we have $220,000, and that's out of LTF, local transportation funds. ADA improvements, we're continuing with our ADA improvements. You graciously in the budget have awarded us the $50,000 a year, and we've been using that to replace a lot of sidewalks and ADA access throughout the city. Central Avenue, California to Kentucky, begin preliminary engineering and environmental. Project consists of installing a water line, storm improvements, and overlay. So this project was delayed a little due to a bird nesting and having babies, and now that they have flown away, we should be starting up in the next week or so. Morel Road overlay is scheduled for 16-17, and we'll be using RSTP funds for that project. And this is a continuation of the Morel. We did part of Morel. We'll be finishing that up. The Stanislaus County project, which intersection improvements, which is going to be signal improvements. This has been programmed for construction at 17-18. I have been told by the county that it is on track, and they are just finishing up with their environmental and their right-of-way. A signal at Roselle and Patterson, a pedestrian railroad crossing, sidewalk infill along Roselle and Patterson. This is part of the area that Mr. Jones had mentioned earlier this evening. We are started our preliminary engineering and also our environmental and right-of-way. Construction funds are obligated for 15-16, so it'll be the latter part of 2016. But the project is moving along. We've met with BNSF. We're sending preliminary plans to them for their review before we completely do the full design, but it's moving along. Roselle Avenue sidewalks, this is one of the areas that was a critical need due to a lot of school buses and children walking. Last year it was a to be determined funding, and we were awarded some CMAQ funds, so this project will begin the fall of 2015. We have already completed our preliminary engineering, and it actually is in the paper tomorrow out to bid. So we're excited about that. Bicycle lane striping along Claus Road. We're working with the Valley Air District and using some of our local transportation non-motorized funds to stripe down Claus Road. 8th Street overlay, we're looking at this project in 16-17 to start our preliminary engineering, environmental, and complete the construction. Alley improvements between Texas and Kansas, slated for 16-17. This is I've been told, one of the only alleys that is not paved, so it is something that we are looking at getting done soon. Railroad crossing improvements, begin preliminary engineering environmental process for the railroad crossing at 1st Street near Patterson. Patterson Road sidewalk infill. This is another one that we had to be determined for funding, and we were able to secure some CMAQ funds. So this project is slated for 16-17. And the line does not go all the way down to Claus, but the project does, just so you know. Roselle Avenue and Morel intersection improvements. We were awarded funding for this project also, CMAQ funding. So we will begin our preliminary engineering and environmental in 16-17, and right-of-way and construction will be in 17-18. Roselle Avenue sidewalk, right-of-way and drainage. This is another one we received some CMAQ funds for. This will be constructed in 16-17, so we will have infill along there and finish up our sidewalks.
And at that point, I would like to compliment Kathleen Cleek, because it is in large part due to her work that we had such an influx of CMAQ funds. I recall the week that she was working to get the applications in for the supplemental funding that became available from StanCog. She worked a lot of very long hours, and those long hours were rewarded by getting us some additional funds. So I just want to compliment her for the work that she's put into that. And that's something that doesn't often get, when we get some of these funding, it doesn't always get back to the council and public. But I did want to, at this point of reviewing these projects, it is in large part to her efforts. So Kathleen, I'd like to publicly acknowledge that.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. So now,
On to the storm drain.
yes.
We also have some RTP updates that we have to provide to StanCog on projects that have been pushed to the right. For example, the intersection of Roselle and Clarabelle.
Yes.
Slated for 2014. It's still on the books as 2014.
Yes.
We have to make those corrections, I believe, in the next 2 weeks.
I believe we have provided them with some information, and I know that they're working with the other cities and getting information so that they can go ahead and make those changes.
Okay, thank you, because that's going to be
Yes.
necessary for federal funds.
Yes.
I have a question too. Any information about streetlights? I know that we are changing the bulbs, changing over to the newer lights, but
LEDs.
Yeah, thank you. But any information on new lights where we still have some dark areas?
I can bring Michael up to talk to you about that.
Thank you.
Evening, Mayor, Council. So the LEDs that's already been changed out are the city's lights. The ones that have not been changed out are still belong to Pacific Gas and Electric. I had a discussion about 2.5 months ago with them. Keep having ongoing discussions with the gentleman that's actually in charge of the project, pushing PG&E to change out their own lights for the energy savings. They keep telling us, the last I heard was 14, 15. Well, we're in 15 now. So PG&E is not now stating a date when they're going to change out their lights because they're in the business right now changing out everybody else's lights. So I really can't give you a good answer on that. I can give you PG&E's pat answer is that they will get to their lights as soon as possible. But they've been saying that for 2.5 years now.
Okay. Thank you.
In the community development that I was involved with last year, there were cities that changed them out themselves and charged directly to PG&E, and PG&E was required to pay the bill.
Really?
So I believe I mentioned that when I came back from one of the conferences.
That was through the PUC?
Yes. So
I'll look into it.
Please do.
Okay.
Threaten that we'll change them out and charge you.
Works for me.
Kathleen, a couple of these projects, and unfortunately Mr. Bermudez isn't here tonight,
Yes.
are several of the projects that he talks about, and I know that he often feels that government works very, very slowly. But I just wanted to put out there that he goes on about several of these projects, and they are in here. Am I correct?
Yes,
Yes,
they are. And so hopefully when we start construction, he'll see them out there, and, you know, that is a very good thing. And I hope that he sees that we are hearing him and we are trying to make a difference. It is slow at times, but we try.
We'll get there. Thank you.
Okay. Storm drain projects. So as you're aware, and Michael has kept you informed with this, is the 7th Street outfall repair. And this currently, we need to fix this, so we have it scheduled for 2015, 2016, and funds is to be determined, as we have not determined that. We are still looking. There may be a few grant opportunities out there, so staff is looking to see if there's some other funding besides our general fund. Storm drain outfall improvements at Candlewood. This project's been on there. We've moved it to 1617. We need to replace an undersized 15-inch river outfall pipe with the appropriate size pipe. Study of the 8th Street storm drain system, and this one's been on there also, and we've moved that to 1617. Kentucky storm drain improvements. We're going to replace a damaged line with a new line before the 1718 overlay. So over on the corner there by the park, it's kind of hard to see, but it's there is a like it's indented, it's falling in, so it needs to be fixed before we can do that overlay. First Street basin improvements, reconstruction. We put $75,000 in there for 1617 to do some preliminary work and fix that up. We haven't addressed some of the areas in there, and I was talking to the street supervisor, and he thinks that we're going to need to do this before the big reconstruct. So we need to put some money in there to make some improvements. Connect OID Snedeker pipeline to the 8th Street storm drain system. This is scheduled for 1617. And any questions on the storm projects?
When do we have to have filtration and treatment prior to discharge to the river? What year is that? Because if we're doing the 7th Street river discharge, does it make sense to expend $137,000 when we'll probably have to expend another $500,000?
Yeah, Michael, do you want to?
I don't make the rules. We just have to play by them.
No, the state makes us play by them.
Federal.
Basically, what we looked at in the engineering process for this was to try to put something in that will meet current standard. In other words, we're looking at some type of separation or something before it gets to the river, whether it be a cyclone separation within the manhole prior to the outfall or something like that. We are looking at that aspect in the engineering aspects that we're looking at. We're not just looking at replacing the line.
So we move on to sewer system projects. We have a cross-connection reduction program. Smoke test sanitary sewer collection system define and eliminate any cross connections. So this is something that we have to follow also with our new MS4 stormwater permit. So we have slated this for 2015, 2016. And this is one of the high priority items that was in the rate study. And wastewater treatment projects. So, and Maricela talked to you earlier about some of the projects that were in the sewer high priority CIP projects for the rate study, which was the equipment protection overhead structure for the wastewater treatment plant equipment, and road reconstruction going into the wastewater treatment plant is eroding and definitely needs to be repaired. Also, the wastewater treatment plant, Pond 9, looking at completing that. Okay. Any questions on the wastewater treatment? Okay. Water projects. So we have our water meter reading system upgrade for the implement the cost savings measures and improve meter reading data for billing purposes. So we have that slated for 15-16, and we had funding to be determined because I know that they were working on the financing and how they were going to work that out. So at the time, it was to be determined. Water line replacements. We have a 3rd Street alley between Sierra and Patterson, and then we have a main replacement at the alley between 3rd and 8th Streets. Those are both slated for 2016-2017. Water main installation on Oakdale Road, and this is to complete that. It's from Morrell to Crawford. And then a water line connection at Prospectors Parkway to Clarabelle Roselle Road. Novi Well site, a sound enclosure. Currently, the Novi Well site's the picture on the top. There's no enclosure, so it's not protected from the elements security-wise. It's very open. Below is one of our well sites that has a cover. So just kind of wanted to show you what we were looking at doing there, make it more secure. And that's slated for 16-17. And we have motor pool equipment. And we have our vehicle replacement. That's to be determined. And what we do is we have every other year, I have a cost in there. And if funding comes available, we're able to replace an aging vehicle. So this time, if there's any funds available through the Air Pollution Control District for CNG, we could look at opportunities at that time. If there isn't funding through the Air District Control District, then we wouldn't be looking at the vehicle. The loader, currently the loader that we have is an antique and parts are no longer available for that. So we've slated that for 16-17.
It might be a nice addition for the Historical Society.
Park it in her front yard.
Building facilities. So we have slated for 15-16 the Sheriff's Building HVAC unit and Corporation Yard block wall is for 15-16 also, and those are both in the budget. Community Center, replace aged HVAC unit. We have that scheduled for 2016-2017. And Community Center renovation project. We have that slated for 16-17. Funding on that is to be determined. And then we have our ADA transition plan that's in draft form. It's being finalized. We're going to be bringing that to the public and to council at the September 22nd meeting. So what I did is I've identified some of the ADA improvements that were in that, and I've included them in the budget here so we can get an idea of what needs to be done and to share that with you. But the full report will be shared with you at the September 26th meeting. So the Teen Center, to address some identified ADA improvements there for 15-16. Funding is to be determined, so we're looking for the funding for that. Some of these improvements, Sue's, our Parks and Recreation Director, her staff is able to do some of these improvements. So the costs may be less than what you're seeing on the screen, but this is what the transition plan has stated for the dollar amount in making some of these improvements. City Hall North, there's some improvements that need to be made here, and City Hall North includes the council chambers, and that's where the majority of the improvements need to be made. The community center, has ADA improvement issues, and then we also had where we were looking at remodeling that. So, and probably incorporate whatever we decide to do, incorporating some of those changes in with the ADA. Sheriff's Building, the Scout Hall. And so those are the ADA improvements. And then Parks and Recreation projects. So we are looking at a Parks Master Plan, and we're looking at fiscal year 15-16, and the funding is to be determined, but we potential urban forestry grant opportunity that we're looking at. So we're in the baby stages of compiling a scope to be competitive. That application is due November 3rd, so staff is working on that now. We're working with Parks and Recreation Director Sue Fitzpatrick and working with Donna and seeing what we can do. Crossroads Homewood Basin. We're going to put some benches, tables, baseball backstop, and some ADA improvements. And Community Dog Park, you've seen this here before. We still have it slated for 15-16 and 16-17, and Sue will be working on some fundraising for that. Community Center pool renovations. And that the cost on that is $230,000, and funding's to be determined. Pool heater, we have that slated for 16-17, and that would be through the general fund low interest loan. Sports complex booster pump, we have that slated for 16-17. And then the Jacob Myers Park Development Phase 3 amphitheater and parking is slated for 16-17 through grants and system development fees. Cardozo tennis courts resurface is slated for 16-17, and that would be funded through the school district and the general fund.
And at this point, I just would like to interject for those that might be watching in the audience, because there's a lot of to be determined projects, particularly those related to the city's buildings and facilities, because there are very few funding sources available for those types of projects. And so usually it has to be general fund or some very specific, a benefactor fundraising or some long-term bond proposal. That being said, by putting them on the list, it allows us to be able to really look for options available. It also allows for the planning to go forward and for possible funding sources to become to be developed as people, when they start getting creative, they see it on the list, they start getting excited about the possibility of participating. Council members, in terms of your contacts, your community groups, to be able to maybe break these projects down, a $500,000, $500,000 improvement, maybe we break that down into more manageable bites. But if we don't put it on a list, if we don't start talking about it, start planning, it limits our ability to go after grant funds, it limits our ability to start getting creative as we look at this there. So I know the council is aware of all of that, but those that are looking from the audience might go in, well, if you don't have any money, why is it on the list? Well, if you don't get it on the list, you're never going to find the money. So at least by putting it on the list, we have a shot. So that's here. So Kathleen, thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Parks and Recreation identified ADA improvements. Some of these parks are in within the L&L district, so we'll be able to make these ADA improvements a lot sooner. Rotary Park, we want to address those identified ADA improvements that need to be done. Silva Park, Sorensen Park, and Harless Park, Zerillo Park, and then there's some ADA improvements that need to be made at Jacob Myers Park, and those are to be determined on the funding source. through our consultant at MIG, who completed our transition plan. He is not aware of any funding for ADA, but we are still looking. And hopefully, this is such a big concern for a lot of cities. I'm hoping that there will be some funding at some time available to make these improvements. Castleberg Park, and also the community center pool. So tonight, the City Council review and provide input on the proposed CIP projects for fiscal year 2015-2020, and if acceptable to Council, adoption of the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2015-2020 is recommended.
Before I ask the council for comments, this is a public hearing. Open the public hearing.
I have a couple questions. The BIOLAC system. Last year, when you did the CIP for 2004-2019, it was listed there for the $3,549,843, and the funding was Schneider Electric Energy Savings. On this one tonight, it's no longer on there, but it is on the sewer one in the sewer rate increase. It is on that CIP. So am I to take it that the funding, Schneider Electric Energy, the Schneider Electric Energy Savings funding is no longer, you're going to get rid of that and just fund it through the rate increases? Because it's not on the new one tonight. Second question is the water meter. Last year it was $3,500,000. This year, on the one you're doing right now, it's $4,052,000. On the water CIP that on the rate increase that you just did, it's $4,700,000. Why is it more when you're going through ratepayers than it is on just the regular CIP? Why all the extra money? I mean, you should have the same rates. You just did the CIP for the water and sewer for the rate increase in June, and now it's gone up that much. And could you also please respond to my question on the 1.6 million from the last, on the rate increases? I would like a response on that. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Seeing none, I close public hearing, bring it back. What is the actual cost of the water meter? The entire project?
I believe that as the numbers have been refined, that the most recent, but I'd like Maricela to actually address that, as well as Evelyn's. Well, the BIOLAC system, the one reason why that's on there is that it is an ongoing project, and the costs associated with that. So even though the energy savings are being used, it would be still noted as part of the budget. But Maricela can speak to that in more detail as well.
Yes, with regards to the Schneider Electric project, the project itself is substantially complete, but what we have ongoing, and which is why it's included within the rate study, is the debt service in order to repay that. And so we did issue approximately $3.9 million in debt in order to pay to finance that project. And so that ongoing cost will be on the sewer fund books for approximately 15 to 20 years. With regards to the water meter system itself has an estimated cost of a little bit close to $4.1 million. We have added a 15% contingency to that, which is being financed through the funds that we have already appropriated from water connection fees. And so we're not looking to finance that in any way.
And have we started do we have the contractors?
We do have the contractors, and so we're currently finishing up the negotiations on the contract itself, which will be brought forward to the City Council for approval. And at that time, then we can finalize the financing. So we have already received quotes from several financing firms that we're evaluating and that we'll be able to bring forward. One of the things that the firms were waiting on was whether a rate increase would be adopted that would be able to support the repayment of these, of any potential loan or bond.
And the last comment and question was on the $1.6 million that was asked previously.
I'm not sure what that one is in regards to, so.
Yeah, I think that would be good if we spoke with Ms. Halbert separately on that, because I think that there might be a misunderstanding of the projects, because my understanding of her earlier question is that she felt that there were projects that were removed from the rate proposal and yet the amount being requested increased. And so I think I might be missing something.
Yeah.
So I think it would be good if we went through that with her, because I don't think that's not the case. So.
Okay, bring it to the council. That we reviewed it, so at this point, I'm looking for a motion or discussion to adopt the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2015 through 2020.
I move that we adopt the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2015 to 2020.
I second that motion.
We have a motion to approve and adopt the capital improvement plan, and a second.
Council members Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5.3, resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, to establish, amend, or authorize fees for the City of Riverbank recreation programs, parks, and facility use.
Yes, and Ms. Sue Fitzpatrick, our Director of Parks and Recreation, will be providing an overview of the proposed changes to the city's fee schedule for recreation programs, parks, and facilities.
Mayor and members of the council, the 2015 fall-winter programs for recreation are complete, and we are bringing the new program fees to you for approval tonight. And at the same time, we wanted to request adjusting a few other fees while we're at it. So the fees that we wanted to talk about tonight are new programs for the fall-winter: Jacob Myers Park Wedding Gazebo, the park reservations, and the community center building. So we'll start with the new programs. All the other programs that we typically offer in the fall winter will still occur. The fees will remain the same, but these are new programs. The Winter Wonderland Spectacular is something we're still working on. We wanted to get the cost in place, but the idea is to have kind of like the haunted hayride, but more community driven, where we could let the community come in and decorate part of the trail at Jacob Myers Park and then go drive through and see the lights is our idea. We haven't come up with the logistics of everything yet, but that's kind of where we're heading. Mom's Day Off is just something around the holidays that we want to have at the teen center where parents can go and finish their Christmas shopping or whatever it might be, and we'll have special activities at the teen center, and we'll charge the $25. Beginning ballet, hip-hop class, art classes, those are all just new programs that typically are once a week for 6 weeks, and those are the fees for the new programs there. Any questions on that section so far? Okay, moving on. The park fees that we wanted to relook at and request approval to adjust are the Jacob Myers Park Wedding Gazebo. And we finished that project about 2 years ago. And what we did is we just wanted to come in real low and just experiment how it was going to work. You know, if we were going to be able to park the cars, if people would like the venue, and we wanted to research what other people were charging as well. So we took some time to do that. We've had 3 or 4 weddings there. They've gone really well. People love it. They tell us the price is too low. So, and we also checked, it was really hard to compare apples to apples for other people who do weddings because they have a huge area and it's just different. But we came up with the $500 that is about right. That includes park aid services, and since we don't have power yet to the gazebo, it includes the use of our generator. So we wanted to propose that adjustment. The next one is the Jacob Myers Park Bernie Pavilion. The way we have been doing that is by number of people, and that just gets a little complicated. Typically, it's over 100 people that use the pavilion, so we wanted to simplify it, raise the fee a little bit, and have, instead of the associated with the number of people there, just say the proposed fee is $100 for residents and $200 for non-residents. Any questions on that section? Okay, moving on. What we've been looking at is the way other cities are doing things, and we thought maybe we would try this with the park facilities, just Castleberg Park and the community center park. Typically what people do is they rent a barbecue area, and we let them have it from 7 or 8 in the morning until 7 or 8 at night, and they don't really need all that time. So we thought if we lowered the price for them for a half a day, if that's all they needed, and then we would have the ability to rent it twice in one day, it would be a win-win. So we would like to try that, and it's basically raising it from 50 for residents to 100, but having the half-day option for 50 for residents and 75 for non.
For half days, what is your typical cleanup effort you have to have before the next round?
Usually about an hour.
So you'll have the staff available for
Correct, because they're still out there in the morning and in the evening, so it's just basically making sure it's ready right before and cleaned up right after. The community center building, we wanted to propose adjusting the fees. Again, we came to you last year and we asked for a subsidy increase from the general fund, and we were to evaluate a little bit more about where our fees should be, which we did. We are still much lower than everywhere else, even though our facility is not as new or large. Our cost includes the staffing and the custodial, which a lot of other, this is just the base fee. So community center building, our current fee is $1,100 for residents. We wanted to propose $1,200 for residents. We have a larger jump for non-residents, going from $1,200 to $1,500. $1,500, including staff and custodial services, is really where we should be, but we wanted to keep it lower for residents and increase it, more so for non-residents.
I have a question.
Okay.
In regards to those fees, is that $1,200, $1,500? Time-wise, what's the factor? Is that 4 hours, 8 hours?
It's from as early as 6 in the morning until midnight.
Okay.
And I want to talk a little bit about that in a minute, too. Service clubs, nonprofit groups, and this is new events or new groups only. We don't want to do anything different with the people who are using the facility now at a reduced rate. But the current fee for service groups is $350. Again, that includes custodial, 8 a.m. till midnight. Proposed fee is raising up to $500 for new groups. The thing I wanted to talk about is at a future meeting, what we might want to talk about is breaking that down, because right now, say a service group wants to use the building, whether it be from 6 or 8 in the morning until midnight or just a few hours, we have the same price. So if we can break that down to the hour or the half day, that will work to their benefit and ours. So I want to look at that a little bit more, and the city manager had a really good idea too on establishing a portion of that into a sinking fund so that we have some money that we're collecting for some of the building improvements that we need. And that way we are setting that aside, and everybody's putting towards that, and it's not such a hard hit on the general fund. So what I'd like to do is in this process is come back and have that broken down in a proposal to relook at some of those things at a later date. The financial impact of these fee adjustments would be a positive for the enterprise fund for the 2015-16 fiscal year. The adjustment in facility fees should help alleviate the need for additional subsidy from the general fund. This particular fiscal year, the general fund is supporting the enterprise fund by $15,000 that was approved in this year's budget. Any questions?
This is a public hearing. Seeing no comment, bring it back to the council for recommendations, comments, or action.
I'll make a motion. If we don't have any comments, I'll make a motion that we accept this report.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, as I understand it, that we are adopting the new fees through resolution by the establish, amend, or for recreation programs, parks, and facility use. And we have a second.
Council members Campbell,
Yes.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 6.1, facility rental fee waiver request.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, we have received a fee waiver request from Mr. John Lyman, who'd like to start a country dance club at the Riverbank Community Center. He's looking at that as a possible venue. Ms. Fitzpatrick can present the staff report, but I would like to thank Mr. Lyman for his patience this evening. This was a very full night, and he's been very patient as we've gone through the agenda this evening. So,
Thank you, sir.
but Ms. Fitzpatrick, thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, the fee waiver request that we received was for a country dance club to use the community center building 2 Fridays a month. And as Jill mentioned, Mr. Lyman wrote a proposal. I thought it was good, and we are bringing it for your review. Basically, the country music dance club would use like I said, it would use the community center 2 Fridays a month, 4 to 5 hours, probably including setup and takedown. It would be predominantly for senior citizens, but anyone from age 21 and over would be welcome. Wine and beer may be served. They're not sure yet how they want to deal with that. The group will supply insurance, the required deposit, and pay for staffing if alcohol is served. There would be a $5 fee charge for entrance to the dance. So they would be charging for entrance to help offset their cost for the program. So the fee waiver request, current fee for service clubs prior to tonight's decision was $350 per day, including custodial. The fee reduction request is asking for that fee to be $100 per day. For the start, and then once their attendance reached 100, they would be willing to up that by an additional 100, and then once 150 in attendance was achieved, they would increase to another 50. So once they reach their numbers of 150, they'd be paying us 250 instead of the 350. The financial impact, if this was approved, would be, if we used our going rate of 350 for a service club, it would be 250 times 2, which would be 500 per month or less as their attendance increases. The 350, like I said, is based on the full day use. Less than that would be less on our direct costs, so it really would be less of a loss for us. This particular request could be absorbed with the funding supplement already approved through the City Council for this fiscal year, which is the $15,000 subsidy. Future discussion as we just talked about in the last item was consider other options for service club fees, offer half-day costs versus full-day costs or multiple day costs, break down indirect costs, direct costs set aside for care of building, find balance of providing buildings for service clubs at an affordable cost, and determining how much the general fund should supplement. And I think that's the difficult thing, is we want to make sure the community center is there for the community groups, but we want to watch out for the general fund as well. So we're trying to find that balance. The recommendation is the activity presented would benefit the community, especially for senior citizens. It's along the lines of our goals. Like I said, the proposal was good. It sounded like it would be a fun thing for young adults, older adults, and senior citizens to attend. The recommendation is to approve the fee reduction for a 6-month period, with the understanding that the rate would increase as attendance increases, especially since they are charging. At the end of the 6-month period, the group would report to the city staff, and the waiver would be reevaluated at that time. And Mr. Lyman is here if you have any questions for him. Otherwise, I can answer any questions as well.
I do have a couple questions, sir. Just quickly, what are your expected costs above and beyond the rental of the facility? Please go to the microphone. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm trying to get an economic feel on this.
This would be a disc jockey with recorded music. I expect to have 2,500 songs of all types from the 40s through the current period of time. I'd expect that I would be the disc jockey, and I would be expected to receive maybe $100, which is a minimum, as compared to live bands at $300 to $400. So this would be a substantial savings there. The $5 would be on the basis of 100 attendants would be $500. So the cost within after 6 months would be about half that much, $250 just for the rental fee. Plus the $100 for the disc jockey. We also talked about to the staff about not having beer and wine sales because of the insurance and extra staffing and possible problems. So we probably would not include beer and wine, just soft drinks, perhaps iced tea, water, and maybe hot tea possibly. So this would eliminate some of the problems there. So I know the fee of $450 that they're talking about for a full day would be exorbitant and would not be feasible.
Well, you have let's say your goal is 150 people.
Yes.
That's $700 minus the $450, and your fee, you come away with still $150 or $200 profit. Correct? I'm not saying
no.
we evaluate it.
Yeah, we don't know exactly how fast the attendance will grow. The main thing is, I think we'd have to go to a nonprofit tax-exempt organization, 501c7, and we'd have to have a maximum of 35% non-member income compared to membership income. So, and also I thought perhaps the city's concessions might be better with a nonprofit organization rather than an individual 1040 Schedule C. So I don't think we're going to make an awful lot of profit. It's hard to project at this time what the profit would be, depending on the attendance, naturally.
What is your interest right now in that? Not yours, but the number of people with interest in it?
There's a lot of interest because of the area between Escalon, Oakdale, Riverbank, Houston, and Modesto. There is a lot of interest with Western music, country Western music. Seems like adjoining neighborhood cities are going into more rock and rap and soul and other types of music. I believe a lot of people are still nostalgic and are interested in classic country music, which was started back in the 50s and was very popular in the 60s and 70s and 80s. So I thought there was a lot of interest, and I think perhaps within 3 months we'd be able to get at least 100 members, and within 6 months possibly 200 members. Like the city of Tuolumne several years ago, they had a country western group that probably was in the neighborhood of 200 people and was very active. half of the members probably would be seniors, probably the other half would be from 21 to 60. But it's hard to predict right now what the profit would be. If there is excessive profit, we'd be willing to donate part of that to the city.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other, does council have any comments, questions, either of Mr. Lyman or Sue? Go ahead.
Sue, on the basis of what Mr. Lyman says that he's going to pay the first 6 months, is that going to cover our fees for cleanup and maintenance and et cetera?
I think it will, mainly because it's only for probably 4 hours. I would think that's part of what we'll be able to evaluate in the 6 months is how much cleanup is there, you know, how much time are they in there, is it even going to work? We don't know for sure what their attendance will be. Maybe they'll start out on the first couple months and then it won't go any further. So, but we can evaluate that. That's why we thought maybe coming back in 6 months, re-looking at things, and if they're doing really good, we will say, well, you know, how about not having the waiver, or negotiating that a little bit.
And the other question I have for Mr. Lyman, because in our data that we have here, you state that you might become a 501c3 or
C7.
Pardon me.
501c7 is more adaptive
Okay.
to our purpose. We're not a benevolent operation, so we will have...
And the other thing that you said about being a proprietor and that type of ownership, do you know which way you're going to go yet?
I have a feeling that we're going to go to a nonprofit tax-exempt operation, so it's going to take some red tape and some paperwork to the city and to the state and the federal to get started, and it's going to take some time. We also need to establish a website, need to establish a fictitious name, a lot of little details we need to do, but the first thing we need to do is get approval from the city council.
And then I heard you just state just a few minutes ago, if you did that and became the nonprofit and say you got your 200 people, you'd be making considerable more money. Is that going to go back into
Well,
your
then
nonprofit?
we'd
or?
probably remove the waiver for 6 months and reduce it down to 4 months or 3 months possibly.
Thank you.
On item 6.1, facility rental fee waiver request, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve item 6.1.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve item 6.1 and a second.
Councilmembers Campbell,
No.
Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Item 6.2, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, supporting the passage of Assembly Bill 700, California Disclosure Act.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, this is an item that was requested to be scheduled by Councilmember Campbell. And for those that may not be aware of it, when items come before, come to my attention that I would not necessarily schedule, but are requested by a City Council member to be put on for your consideration, I do that at the request of the City Council. And since this is essentially a political decision, I spoke with Councilmember Campbell this regard and indicated I would schedule it his request, but it would not receive any staff analysis or any additional recommendation. It would just be requesting your direction on how you would like us to proceed, if at all. I'd also like to comment, though, I think, as Mr. Campbell will probably reiterate, is that we do have a member of the public, Mr. Ed Tobacco, who did speak to Mr. Campbell and has also waited patiently this evening. I just wanted to acknowledge his patience this evening, as I will now hand it over to Councilmember Campbell to provide a little more information on this item and explain why he thought it would be important for you to consider this evening.
Thank you, Jill. And Ed Tobacco brought this to me as a citizen several weeks ago, and I looked at the bill and decided that I felt it was a bill that we might look at because some other cities are supported it in our area, and they are on an agenda where this bill would be decided one way or the other in the next few weeks as it goes through the Assembly. In essence, it's a transparency bill, and I'm going to let Mr. Tobacco stand up and come forward and explain it per se.
Okay.
Pardon me. Mayor O'Brien, members of the City Council. My name is Ed Tobacco, and I live at 2626 Centerpiece Court in Riverbank. I'm here tonight as a resident of Riverbank, but I'm also here as a volunteer with a nonprofit, nonpartisan group. It's called the California Clean Money Organization. And I'm here to ask you for your support on AB 700 to support it. When the Supreme Court made its Citizens United decision in 2010, 8 of the 9 court justices noted that there will be problems when groups run ads while hiding behind dubious and misleading names. Transparent disclosure is needed for voters to make informed decisions and to give proper weight to different speakers and messages. In 2013, a California poll found that 85% of California voters believe there should be more disclosure in funding of elections. In that same year, there was another one that was national, and it was done with business executives. And they found that 91% felt the same way. And then in May of this year, another poll, and I have the names of all the people that did the polls, but I was asked to keep this a little shorter. They found a poll this earlier this year found that 85% of voters want to completely rebuild or make fundamental changes to campaign financing. So AB 700, the California Disclose Act, is the first step. It would require that for state ballot measures only, not candidates, but ballot measures only, all TV, radio, and print ads must include a list of the top 3 funders with their actual names, regardless if they are a person, a corporation, or a union. No longer will the funders be able to hide behind a misleading committee name such as Stop Hidden Taxes. The current status of AB 700 is that it has passed the second Assembly subcommittee and will soon be brought to a full vote of the full Assembly. To win that vote, we must show that our elected representatives that there is a widespread endorsement from citizens, businesses, organizations, and civic leaders. I am here tonight because recently we received one of these resolutions from the city of Modesto. And being a resident of Riverbank, I thought I would bring it here. So I'm here to ask the council to show your support of AB 700 by approving this resolution. And I would like to thank Council Member Campbell for making this possible. Any questions?
The second committee that has gone through, which one was that?
Appropriations. So there's 2 that they have to go through before they go to the floor.
For support of individual bills, this is extraordinary. We normally individually support or not support. And when we go to our representative, whether it's Senator Galgiani or Member Olson, we'll sit down and say, these are the bills that we support or we do not support, and try convincing them that way. This is an extraordinary measure on the support of a active bill. And it's not in the final form yet. Usually when it goes through, some of them, they have writers.
Right.
And I'm concerned, personally, I'm concerned that without it being in the final form, we may be supporting something that we would not normally have supported. So again, I have sat down with our elected officials and have asked for either support of or non-support of specific bills. And I believe we all have done that. Councilmember Campbell, why should we take extraordinary action on this one?
Well, when it was presented to me by Mr. Tobacco, I looked the bill over, and as he stated, our Modesto has supported it as a council, and indicated that some other cities had possibly done this also. I felt that it was something we could at least look at and make a decision on, since Modesto has supported it per se, as I said.
Any discussion? I'm going to ask for a recommendation on the bill. It's on this amendment. I mean this resolution. However, again, I'm uncomfortable without it being complete, and also going outside our normal roles. So I need a recommendation.
I'd like to recommend that we support the bill as a council. I'll make that as a motion.
Okay, that didn't go far. I don't want to say we're not going to support the bill, sir. I believe no action will be taken.
Okay.
I prefer, again, even going with you to some of the representatives who's going to be voting on this specific item. Again, it's out of our ordinary process. We have in the past sat down individually and supported bills, but not collectively. Okay? And I apologize for your time that you spend here, but I do support the openness and the fairness.
Right.
But without having the complete bill ready, I'm concerned.
Okay. Appreciate that.
And thank you for your time, sir.
I do support you also, and I don't have a problem doing it individually.
All right. We go to staff comments.
Mayor, members of City Council, I'd like to start staff comments this evening with Donna Kinney with an update on the property at 3rd and Atchison that has been the subject of much discussion in previous council meetings.
Good evening. It's my first time addressing you tonight. I did make contact with the property owner twice today. The first time he did provide me with the asbestos contractor's name and contact information. I did leave a couple of voicemails, messages before I was able to talk to the contractor, who verified that he has been out to the site. He is preparing a final bid. He hasn't quite completed it yet because he has a very tight schedule right now. But he is meeting back with the property owner, and once they have a signed contract, he will submit his permit paperwork to the Air Quality Board for the asbestos removal. They take about 10 days to process that permit. Once he is given that permit and can get started on the work, it will take about 7 to 10 days to complete the work. I did call the property owner again to verify that he has been trying to get a hold of this contractor to sign the contract. And he did say that he has 2 calls in, but the contractor had not returned his call yet to make that final meeting. So that's where we stand right now.
Thank you.
So I would like to add that Donna has been working on this for a couple of weeks. The idea was to get you the absolute latest, and by continuing to call to let them know again that the council and the city is very concerned about the state of that building. And so we are continuing to follow up there. There's, like I said, there's been a lot of parties, and there's been it's taken way too long. But it's a much more complicated process than one might think, as we are learning. So. And then just to complete staff comments this evening, Donna, thank you very much. Appreciate that. If there are any questions, there will be no council meeting on September 8th per council decision earlier this year. And we just, as a staff, like to wish the City Council and the members of the community a very safe and happy Labor Day weekend.
Okay, Councilmember Jones-Cruz.
I don't have anything else for tonight, so thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Just, if you see a fireman, thank them. They're putting in extra hours and really working hard to keep this state from burning down.
Councilmember Tucker.
I'll just briefly thank all the staff for their wonderful reports this evening and all their hard work.
Vice Mayor.
The last day of the farmers market is September 2nd, and we are planning special events for our families. And I watched a webinar on urban forestry, that grant that Kathleen was talking about. So there are monies out there through CAL FIRE grants, and so I'm glad to see that we are working with them, or we know what's needed. So I'm glad to hear about that. And I also had a conversation with the business owner that was very, very pleased with the service that they received from our finance, business, and community development departments. And I was told that these departments were very responsive, easy to work with, and made their transition to a new location an easy one so that they could focus on the business instead of a lot of red tape. So I want to publicly thank you for all of your hard work, and also because this is one of our elements that we're striving for in our strategic plan to be more business friendly. So again, I want to thank you for that. That's it.
Thank you. Just very briefly for water and sewer billing, Maricela, if you could take a look at using a double coupon to have payments, let's say for January, February, you pay January's during January, February's during February, even though you're billing it once. That way you get, you don't have 12 months out of the year that they're out in the field and you're not doing double mailings. Understand what I'm trying to, thank you. Kathleen, very good on the CIP. Thank you for the CMAQ funding. Keep it up. You still have a long ways to go. And for this council, as we get requests for waivers of system development fees, we must be aware of what we just did tonight, that we can't afford to waive a lot of the system development fees for sewer and water, which will impact the average citizen. With that, we go to closed session consisting of LRA item 8.1, conference with real property negotiators, government code section 54956.8, property APN 062-031-005, agency negotiator Jill Anderson, city manager, and Debbie Olson, LRA executive director, property negotiator Sean Walsh, AQH, under negotiation price and term of payment or both. Item 8.2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 alpha. Name of case, Barnum Construction, Inc. versus City of Riverbank, Court of Appeals, California, 5th District. Case number Foxtrot 058692 and case number Foxtrot 059499. Is there anyone wishing to comment on items prior to going to closed session? Seeing none, we're going into closed session. Okay, we have 9 minutes.
Okay.
The LRA City Council meetings resumed. Item 9. LRA item 9.1, report in closed session. LRA item 8.1, conference with real property negotiators. Direction has been provided to staff. Items 9.2, report in closed session. Item 8.2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. Again, direction has been provided with staff, to staff. With that, the city meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all, and it was a long night.